Motherland Tales, from its timeless traditional African folklore heritage, presents The Weird Heroine. Once upon a time, in a small, remote village cuddled within the lush African mangrove forest, there lived a young girl named Omar. Orphaned at a tender age, Omar's parents had succumbed to a mysterious illness that swept through their village. Despite her tragic loss and her poverty, Omar grew up to be extraordinarily beautiful, with one striking feature that set her apart from everyone else: her hair. Her hair was not just long, it flowed like a river of ebony silk, cascading down to the ground and following her like a shadow wherever she went. On some occasions, it will flow freely, while on others, it gets knotted. Such was the perplexing nature of her hair. Omar's hair was the subject of much gossip and superstition among the villagers. Many believed it to be a curse, an omen of bad luck, and they shunned her for it. The belief stemmed from the fear and ignorance that often accompany the unexplained and extraordinary. Thus, Omar found herself living in isolation, in an old, dilapidated mud hut on the outskirts of the village, right on the pathway that led to the farms. Omar herself did not understand why her hair was so unusually long. She was worried and disturbed that her hair had made her an outcast in her own village. Apart from the embarrassment that came from the hair, she was not comfortable with the hair because it was a burden carrying it, and it had stood in her way many times, making her to fall down. Omar always regretted that she had such a long hair. She actually wanted her hair to be like the hair of other girls in the village. Maybe if her parents had not died so early, they would have told her why her hair was far longer than the hairs of other girls in the village. Her only solace came from the villagers of the neighboring community. Unlike her own people, they did not view her hair as a curse, but rather as a unique trait that made her special. They welcomed her warmly and treated her with respect and kindness, offering her meals and small tokens of appreciation for her hard work in their farmlands. Every morning, Omar would wake up before dawn and make her way to the neighboring village where she worked in the fields. She tilled the land, planted seeds, and harvested crops for the villagers in exchange for a meager pay. Despite her harsh living conditions and the disdain of her own village, Omar was kind-hearted and industrious, and she never let her circumstances dampen her spirit. One fateful evening, as Omar made her way back home through the thick forest that separated her village from the neighboring one, she was confronted by 4 young men from her village. These men, known for their mischievous and often cruel behavior, saw her as an easy target due to her isolated and vulnerable position. "Look who we have here," sneered the leader of the group, a tall and burly man named Uduma. "The cursed girl with the strange hair." They circled her, their intentions clear and malicious. Omar's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to flee, but they were too quick. They grabbed her, and she struggled desperately to free herself. In the midst of the struggle, something extraordinary happened. Omar's long hair, which had always been a burden to her, suddenly came alive. It wrapped around the men, binding their limbs and pinning them to the ground. The hair seemed to move with a life of its own, lashing out and flogging them until they cried out in pain and terror. The men, overwhelmed and terrified by this mystical force, scrambled to their feet and fled into the forest, their cries echoing through the trees. Omar stood in stunned silence, her heart still racing from the encounter. She looked down at her hair, which now lay quietly as if nothing had happened. She had always known her hair was different, but she had never imagined it possessed such power. That night, as she sat in her small hut, she pondered the strange occurrence. Was her hair truly a curse? Or could it be a blessing in disguise? Although she was not comfortable with the long hair, she was happy that the hair had protected her and saved her life. She decided to keep this newfound power a secret, fearing that the villagers would only grow more fearful and hostile if they discovered the truth. The following day, Omar returned to the neighboring village as usual. She worked with a new sense of purpose and confidence, knowing that she had a hidden power that could protect her. As she moved through the fields, her hair seemed to respond to her thoughts and movements, making her tasks easier and more efficient. She could clear a field of weeds in half the time it used to take, and she could carry heavy loads with the aid of her hair. With her mystical hair, she aided the farmers, helping them bring down palm fruits from palm trees and coconuts from its trees with ease, her hair bringing them down as if they weighed no more than a feather. The villagers soon noticed her increased productivity and the almost magical way she moved through the fields. They marveled at her abilities and began to speak of her with admiration and respect. Word of Omar's extraordinary skills spread quickly, and soon people from other villages came to witness her in action and to seek her help with their own agricultural tasks. Back in Omar's village, disaster struck. A torrential rainstorm caused the river to flood, washing away the only bridge that connected the village to their farmlands. The villagers were devastated. Without access to their fields, they faced the very real threat of starvation. The village elders, wise but often bound by tradition and superstition, were at a loss. They convened numerous meetings, but no solution seemed viable. The entire village fell into despair, and hunger began to gnaw at their spirits. One evening, as the elders sat in their council hut, an elder from the neighboring village visited them. He had heard of their plight and had a suggestion. "Why not seek the help of Omar?" he proposed. "She is no ordinary girl. She possesses a power that could save you." The elders were initially skeptical, but with no other options, they decided to approach her. They knew that she was a strange girl, but they did not know that she had mystical powers. After much debate among them, they summoned courage and went to her hut to appeal to her to help them. Omar listened to the elders as they explained their dire situation. She could see the desperation in their eyes and hear the sincerity in their voices. Despite the way they had treated her, she was moved by their plight. "I will help you," she said finally. "I will cross you to your farmlands with my hair, but on one condition. For this period, you will cross the river using my hair. You must give me half of your harvest." The elders, though taken aback by her proposed solution and demand, had no choice but to agree. They knew that without her help, their village would perish. The next morning, Omar stood by the riverbank, her long hair flowing into the water. She focused her mind, and her hair began to extend, forming a solid bridge across the raging waters. Her hair spanned the river, creating a safe passage to their fields. They crossed the hair bridge, carrying their tools and seeds. Omar's hair held firm, providing a stable and secure way for them to reach their farmlands. The villagers worked tirelessly, planting and tending to their crops, knowing that their survival depended on their efforts. As the months passed, the fields began to yield their bounty. The villagers, true to their word, brought half of their harvest to her hut each time they harvested their crops. Her once empty hut now overflowed with grains, fruits, and vegetables, and she became wealthy beyond her wildest dreams. Omar's newfound wealth and her role in saving the village did not go unnoticed. The same villagers who had once scorned her now looked upon her with a mixture of awe and envy. Her fame spread far and wide, and people from distant lands came to see the girl with the magical hair. Despite her wealth, Omar remained humble and kind-hearted. She used her riches to help those in need, providing food and shelter to the poor and the orphaned. Her generosity earned her the respect and admiration of many, but it also fueled jealousy and resentment among some of the villagers. As Omar's influence grew, so did the challenges she faced. Some villagers, unable to contain their envy, began to plot against her. They spread rumors and tried to undermine her authority, hoping to turn the village against her. Omar, however, remained steadfast. She continued to use her powers for the good of the community, always putting others before herself. Her unwavering dedication and the tangible benefits of her work eventually won over even her harshest critics. One day, a severe drought struck the region. The river dried up, and the fields began to wither. The villagers, once again facing starvation, turned to Omar for help. This time, however, the challenge was even greater. The land was parched, and no amount of hair bridges could bring water to their fields. Omar knew that the only way to save the village was to make the ultimate sacrifice. She summoned all her strength and willed her hair to grow longer and longer, forming a massive network of roots that burrowed deep into the earth, reaching for underground water sources. As her hair dug deeper, it finally tapped into a hidden aquifer, bringing life-giving water to the surface. Water flowed everywhere. The fields were revitalized, and the village was saved. But the effort took a tremendous toll on her. Her once luxurious hair was now short and frail, and she was left physically weakened. The villagers, witnessing Omar's selfless act, were filled with gratitude and admiration. They realized the true extent of her sacrifice and the depth of her love for the community. They no longer saw her as the cursed girl with the strange hair, but as a hero and a leader. The village, transformed by Omar's example, became a place of unity and cooperation. The elders, inspired by her courage and wisdom, worked together to ensure that such a crisis would never threaten their community again. They constructed strong bridges, all under Omar's guidance. Gradually, Omar recovered her health, but her hair never regained its former length or strength. In recognition of all that she had done, the village decided to hold a grand celebration in her honor. They decorated the village square with colorful banners and prepared a feast with the finest food. People from neighboring villages were invited. Her fame grew endlessly through generations. This story from Motherland Tales teaches a lesson of strength in unity and also of respect and love for others in building a rancor-free society. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment to our channel so that whenever we post a new video, you will be the first to be notified.